March 15, 1970, Royal Albert Hall, London. 3,000 people watched in horror as Tom Jones said something so cruel to Andy Williams that British newspapers would call it the most shocking moment in awards show history. Andy sat perfectly still, his dignity intact, even in humiliation. 24 hours later, Tom Jones was crying uncontrollably in his hotel suite. This is the story of what happened between those two moments. By 1970, the music world was divided into two camps. There were the revolutionaries, young, dangerous, sexual. They challenged everything. Tom Jones, at 29, was their king, the Welsh coal miner's son who'd turned raw masculinity into the biggest act in show business. Then there were the traditionalists, elegant, safe, family-friendly. They represented stability in a chaotic decade. Andy Williams, at 41, was their champion, the Indiana choir boy who'd built an empire on wholesomeness and warmth. They'd never met. They moved in completely different circles. Tom owned Vegas showrooms where women threw hotel keys on stage. Andy dominated living rooms where families gathered around television sets every Christmas. The Variety Club Awards in London was meant to honor British entertainment, but it had become something else entirely, a battleground, a place where the old guard and the new generation would finally come face to face. Andy had been invited as a special guest, a gesture of respect to American music's influence on British culture. His manager hadn't wanted him to go. "The British scene is changing fast," his manager had said. "It might not be your crowd anymore." But Andy believed in showing respect. He'd built his entire career on graciousness and professionalism. He wasn't about to stop now. Tom Jones would be there too, accepting his third consecutive Male Vocalist of the Year award. And Tom Jones was feeling invincible. The Royal Albert Hall was electric that night. Britain's biggest stars filled every seat. The Beatles had broken up just weeks earlier, and everyone was wondering who would define the new decade. Andy Williams arrived quietly, in a perfectly tailored suit. He worked the room with his characteristic warmth, shaking hands with British television personalities and musicians. The reception was genuine. Andy had always been respected in Britain. Tom Jones arrived like a conquering king. Velvet suit, chest hair visible, enormous entourage. He didn't work the room came to him. When Male Vocalist of the Year was announced, no one was surprised. Tom Jones's name was called for the third consecutive year. The crowd erupted. Tom made his way to the stage with that distinctive swagger, accepted his trophy from Princess Margaret, and turned to the microphone. His speech started with the usual gratitude: band, management, fans, standard acceptance speech material. Then his tone changed. "You know," Tom said, his Welsh accent thick, "when I look out at this audience, I see the future of music." Applause. "But I also see the past." The applause stopped. People sensed something was coming. Tom's eyes scanned the audience and landed on Andy Williams in the third row. He didn't look away. "I see Andy Williams sitting right there," Tom said, pointing directly at him. The room went completely silent. "Andy, with all due respect, you represent everything this new decade needs to leave behind. You're yesterday's news, mate. Your elevator music with a smile. The world has moved on." 3,000 people stopped breathing. Andy Williams sat perfectly still, no emotion on his face, hands folded in his lap. But David Frost, sitting beside him, saw his jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. Tom kept going. "Nothing personal, Andy. You seem like a nice bloke, but nice doesn't sell records anymore. Nice doesn't pack Vegas. Nice is over." Then Tom turned back to the microphone, thanked everyone again, and walked off stage to scattered, confused applause. The cameras immediately turned to Andy Williams. His reaction would be front-page news. But Andy gave them nothing. Just that same slight smile, perfectly composed. Claudine Longet, Andy's wife, leaned forward from the row behind him. "Andy, we need to leave. Now." "No," Andy said quietly, never taking his eyes off the stage. "We're staying." And he did. For the next 2 hours, Andy Williams sat through the remainder of the Variety Club Awards with perfect composure. When it was his turn to present an award, he walked on stage to nervous, sympathetic applause. He made his presentation with warmth and humor. He smiled, he was gracious, and he never once mentioned what Tom Jones had said to him. Backstage, Tom's world was beginning to shift. His manager cornered him the moment he came off stage. "What the hell were you thinking? You just insulted one of the most respected men in the industry." Tom, still high on adrenaline and champagne, waved him off. "Someone needed to say it. Andy Williams is finished. Everyone knows it." But as the night wore on, Tom began to notice the looks. Other performers weren't congratulating him on his award. They were avoiding him. The atmosphere had changed. Engelbert Humperdinck, Tom's fellow Welsh singer and close friend, pulled him aside near the bar. "Tom, that was beneath you." "I was just being honest," Tom said defensively. "No," Engelbert replied, his voice quiet but firm. "You were being cruel. Andy Williams never did anything to you. He's always been kind to everyone in this industry, and you humiliated him for no reason." For the first time that night, doubt crept into Tom's chest, but he pushed it away. He was Tom Jones. He was on top of the world. He didn't need to apologize to anyone. The next morning, March 16th, Tom Jones woke up in his suite at the Dorchester Hotel feeling wrong. The hangover was brutal, but it wasn't just physical. Something else sat heavy in his chest, an unease he couldn't shake. At 10 a.m., his manager arrived with the morning newspapers. He didn't say anything, just laid them out on the coffee table. The headlines were devastating. Tom Jones attacks Andy Williams at Variety Club. Singer's cruel speech shocks London. Jones's graceless victory leaves sour taste. Tom picked up one paper after another. The reviews of his behavior were unanimous. Even publications that loved his music condemned what he'd done. "This is bad," his manager said quietly. Tom's phone had been ringing all morning. His publicist, his record label. Everyone wanted to know what he was going to do about the situation. "What can I do?" Tom asked. "It's done." "You can apologize," his manager said. "I'm not apologizing," Tom said, his pride flaring up. "I meant what I said." His manager looked at him for a long moment. "Then you're going to lose a lot more than one night's respect, Tom. You're going to lose your reputation." At 11 a.m., a hotel porter knocked on Tom's door with a package, small, wrapped in simple brown paper, no return address. Inside was an album, Andy Williams's latest recording, and a handwritten note. "Tom, congratulations on your award. You've earned every bit of your success through your incredible talent and hard work. I've always admired your voice and your passion. The future of music is bright with artists like you leading the way. I hope this decade brings you everything you deserve. With respect and admiration, Andy Williams." Tom read the note once, twice, 3 times. Then he sat down on the edge of his bed, and something inside him broke completely. His manager found him 20 minutes later, still holding the note, tears streaming down his face. "He sent me this," Tom said, his voice shaking. "He sent me this? After what I did to him? He sent me this?" His manager read the note. His expression softened. "Tom, you need to make this right." "How?" Tom asked. "How do I make this right?" At 2 p.m., Tom Jones walked into the lobby of the Savoy Hotel. He looked terrible, unshaven, eyes red from crying, the swagger completely gone. He asked the desk clerk to ring Andy Williams's room. "Tell him Tom Jones needs to speak with him. Please, it's important." 5 minutes later, Andy Williams came down to the lobby. He was dressed casually, prepared for his flight back to America that evening. When he saw Tom, he walked over calmly. "Tom, Andy, Tom's voice broke. "I need to apologize. What I said last night was unforgivable. Would you like to sit down?" Andy asked, gesturing toward the hotel lounge. They sat across from each other in leather chairs. For a moment, neither man spoke. "Thank you for the album," Tom finally said, "and the note. After what I did, you had every right to destroy me, to go to the press, to tell them what a bastard I was." "Why would I do that?" Andy asked simply. "Because I deserved it," Tom said, and fresh tears began flowing. "I was showing off. I was drunk on my own success. I saw you sitting there, representing everything decent and stable, and I wanted to prove I'd surpassed all of that. I wanted to be the king, and I thought tearing you down would make me bigger." Andy listened without interrupting. "But you didn't get smaller," Tom continued. "I did. The moment those words left my mouth, I got smaller, and everyone in that room saw it. Everyone except me." "Tom," Andy said gently, "you're not small. You have one of the greatest voices of any generation. You've brought joy to millions of people. One mistake doesn't erase all of that." "How can you be this kind to me?" Tom asked, "after what I said?" "Because I remember what it's like to be young and on top of the world. I remember the pressure, the competition, the constant need to prove yourself. You made a mistake. That doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human." Tom broke down completely then. Not the controlled tears from earlier, full, heaving sobs. In the middle of the Savoy Hotel lounge, Tom Jones cried like he hadn't cried since he was a child. Andy didn't judge, didn't lecture. He just sat there, present, giving Tom the space to feel everything he needed to feel. When Tom finally composed himself, he looked at Andy with genuine desperation. "Is there anything I can do to make this right? Anything at all?" Andy thought for a moment. "Actually, yes, there is something you can do." 3 days later, Tom Jones called a press conference at the Dorchester Hotel. Dozens of journalists and cameras filled the room. Tom stood at the podium, a written statement in his hands. But when he began to speak, he set the paper aside. "I want to publicly apologize to Andy Williams," Tom said, his voice steady but emotional. "What I said at the Variety Club Awards was cruel, unprofessional, and completely undeserved. Andy Williams is a legendary performer who has brought happiness to millions of people through his music and his grace." He paused, gathering himself. "I was wrong to suggest his time had passed. I was wrong to dismiss his contributions to music. I was wrong to use his name to make myself feel bigger, and I'm deeply, deeply sorry." Then Tom announced something that surprised everyone in the room. "I'm donating my Variety Club Award and the prize money to the Moon River Theater Fund, which Andy Williams established to support music education for underprivileged children. If I'm going to call myself Male Vocalist of the Year, I should act like it. And that means supporting other artists, not tearing them down." The press conference made international headlines. The narrative shifted completely. Tom Jones went from villain to a man capable of real growth and genuine remorse. Andy Williams, asked about the incident by reporters at LAX, simply said, "Tom Jones is a brilliant artist and a good man who made a mistake. We've all made mistakes. What matters is what you do after. Tom did everything right." Over the following months, something unexpected happened. Tom and Andy began corresponding. Letters at first, then phone calls, then eventually they met for dinner when both were performing in Vegas. The friendship that developed was genuine. In 1972, Tom appeared on Andy's Christmas special. They sang together, they laughed together, and anyone watching could see that the bond between them was real. Tom later said that duet was one of the highlights of his entire career. In his autobiography, published decades later, Tom wrote, "That night at the Royal Albert Hall, I learned the difference between being powerful and being strong. Power is tearing someone down when you're on top. Strength is lifting someone up when they've tried to tear you down. Andy Williams showed me what real strength looks like." Andy, in his own memoir, wrote about Tom with genuine affection. "Tom Jones has one of the greatest voices I've ever heard. What happened in London wasn't about talent or music. It was about a young man learning one of life's hardest lessons. I'm honored I could be part of that lesson." When Tom Jones was knighted in 2006, becoming Sir Tom Jones, one of the first congratulatory messages he received was from Andy Williams. It read simply, "Congratulations, Sir Tom. Nobody deserves it more. Your friend, Andy." Tom kept that message in his wallet until the day Andy died in 2012. At Andy's funeral, Tom was one of the speakers. Through tears, he told the story of that night in London, and he ended with these words, "Andy Williams saved my career that day, but more importantly, he saved my soul. He showed me that the measure of a man isn't how he acts when he's winning. It's how he treats people when he has every right to hurt them back. Andy had that right, and he chose grace instead. I've spent the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that grace." Tom Jones and Andy Williams showed us something profound that day in London. They showed us that our worst moments don't have to define us. Tom could have defended his cruelty. He could have let pride prevent his apology. Instead, he chose humility. He admitted his mistake publicly and made real amends. He transformed a moment of shame into an opportunity for growth. Andy could have held a grudge. He could have played the victim. He had every right to be bitter. Instead, he chose grace. He saw Tom not as an enemy, but as a young man struggling with success. He gave Tom the greatest gift one person can give another, the opportunity to become better. Together, they proved that the distance between our worst selves and our best selves is just one choice: the choice to apologize when we're wrong, the choice to forgive when we're hurt, the choice to be better. Tom Jones and Andy Williams both went on to legendary careers spanning decades. But their greatest performance wasn't on any stage. It was in that hotel lounge when they chose connection over conflict and grace over grudges. That's the performance that changed them both, and it's the one we should all aspire to give. If this story moved you, subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Have you ever had to apologize for something you said in anger? How did it change you? Let us know in the comments. And ring that notification bell for more true stories about redemption and grace.